What if the greatest love story ever created was actually born from loneliness, grief, and obsession? What if the monster everyone feared only wanted to be loved? And what if the real villain wasn't the creature brought back from the dead, but the man who believed he had the right to create life itself? This is The Bride. The story begins in a world still haunted by the consequences of playing God. Dr. Victor Frankenstein has spent years trying to bury his past. The experiments. The bodies. The unnatural creation that escaped his control. The monster he brought into existence. Society remembers him as a brilliant scientist. But Victor remembers himself differently. As a man whose arrogance destroyed everything he ever loved. Yet some obsessions never truly die. Hidden away from the public eye, Victor lives in isolation, tormented by guilt and sleepless nights. But somewhere in the darkness, another soul suffers even more. The creature. The being Victor created. Condemned to wander through a world that sees only his appearance. Feared by strangers. Hunted by angry mobs. Rejected by anyone he dares approach. Despite possessing intelligence, compassion, and a desperate longing for connection, the creature remains alone. He has witnessed kindness from a distance. He has watched lovers build families. He has seen children embraced by parents. And each experience deepens the wound inside him. Because more than revenge, more than anger, he wants companionship. Eventually, the creature finds Victor. Not as a predator, but as a broken soul making one final request. Create someone like me. Someone who understands. Someone who won't run away when she sees my face. Victor refuses immediately. He remembers the devastation caused by his first experiment. The deaths. The suffering. The consequences of believing science could replace nature. But the creature persists. His loneliness becomes impossible to ignore. He reminds Victor that while humanity condemned him as a monster, it was humanity that created him. Victor struggles with the request. Part of him understands the creature's pain. Another part fears repeating history. Yet grief has a way of weakening conviction. Driven by guilt and the hope of redemption, Victor agrees. Deep within an abandoned laboratory, the impossible begins once more. Bodies are gathered. Machines are rebuilt. Electricity surges through forgotten equipment. Science and madness dance together again. But this time, Victor's motivations have changed. He isn't chasing glory. He believes he's correcting a mistake. He believes love can heal what creation once destroyed. Then, she awakens. The bride opens her eyes. At first, there is silence. Confusion. Fear. She gasps for breath she never earned. She sees hands stitched together from death. Memories that aren't hers. Fragments of lives that ended before hers began. Victor stares in awe. The creature trembles with hope. For the first time in his existence. He isn't alone. But love cannot be manufactured. The bride quickly realizes something is wrong. Everyone around her expects her to fulfill a role she never chose. Victor expects gratitude. The creature expects companionship. Society would undoubtedly expect fear. Nobody asks what she wants. Nobody asks who she is. Because from the moment she opened her eyes, others had already decided her purpose. The bride rejects it. She isn't Victor's redemption. She isn't the creature's reward. She is her own person. And she demands the right to define herself. The rejection devastates the creature. After enduring a lifetime of isolation, he believed this would finally end his suffering. Instead, the one being capable of understanding him refuses to become what he imagined. His pain transforms into rage. Not because he hates her, but because hope can be more painful than despair. Meanwhile, whispers of unnatural events spread through nearby communities. People disappear. Strange figures move through the night. Fear grows rapidly. Soon, hunters descend upon Victor's laboratory. Armed with torches and hatred, they seek to destroy what they cannot understand. Victor attempts to protect both creations. He argues they deserve compassion. But humanity rarely listens when fear takes control. The bride, witnessing the violence unfolding around her, begins understanding the tragedy of her existence. The world fears what it cannot categorize. Victor created life believing he could control its outcome. The creature believed companionship would erase his suffering. Both men projected their desires onto her. Neither truly saw her. And yet, despite everything, she chooses empathy. Rather than abandoning the creature entirely, she confronts him. She acknowledges his loneliness, his pain, his longing to belong. But she refuses to sacrifice her identity to ease his suffering. Love without choice isn't love. It's captivity. The creature finally understands. The revelation breaks him. All his life, he blamed humanity for rejecting him. Now he recognizes how easily pain can become selfishness. How desperation can become entitlement. Outside, chaos erupts. The mob attacks the laboratory. Flames consume years of scientific obsession. Victor fights to save the very beings he brought into existence. But tragedy follows him as faithfully as shadow follows light. Mortally wounded, Victor spends his final moments accepting responsibility. Not for creating life, but for believing he owned it. He apologizes. Not as a scientist, but as a flawed man who confused brilliance with wisdom. As the laboratory collapses around them, the bride and the creature escape into the night. Behind them, Victor's world burns. Ahead of them lies uncertainty. The creature asks where they go next. The bride doesn't have an answer. Because for the first time, neither of them belongs to someone else's story. They belong to themselves. Their journey becomes one of discovery rather than destiny. Two beings born from death, navigating a world that fears difference. Not lovers in the traditional sense. Not enemies. But companions shaped by shared understanding. The final scenes remind us that monsters are rarely defined by appearance. The true horror emerges when people deny others the freedom to choose who they become. Victor sought redemption. The creature sought love. The bride sought identity. And perhaps that is what makes this story timeless. Because all of us are trying to answer the same question. Who am I when the world tells me who I should be? As dawn breaks, the bride turns toward an uncertain horizon. No longer an experiment. No longer an obligation. No longer someone's creation. She walks forward as something entirely new. A woman born from death. Choosing life on her own terms. And maybe that is the greatest act of defiance imaginable. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to subscribe to Movie Story Recaps and share this video with fellow movie lovers. Drop a comment below and tell us which movie you'd like us to recap next. Because sometimes, the most human hearts are found inside the creatures we call monsters.